their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
What is up, everybody? This is Hater Radio. My name is Chris McLean. I'm here with my co-host, Ian Gibson. Ian, how are you?
I'm doing good. Still recovering from a pretty insane Saturday.
Yeah, we'll get into the Gators stuff because obviously that was a ridiculous game, but just a lot of really good games. I think there was 7 upsets of top 25 teams, if I'm correct. I saw like a graphic last night that it was like so many. It was kind of a ridiculous. That Houston Kansas State upset, I totally caught off guard. I don't think anybody saw that one coming because Houston has been terrible all year, and I think K-State was up by like 17 in the fourth quarter and like somehow lost that one. But okay, let's jump into it. So Friday, all right. So we do the recap. This is the recap show on Sunday, and we're going to jump into it. So this is the Week 10 recap. Friday, we had the USF FAU game. It was slow going at first. FAU was moving the ball on the ground. Their quarterback for FAU is not very proficient in the air. And, USF kind of let him dictate things at first. And then it was compounded with the fact that USF really couldn't move the ball that well in the beginning of the game. As things wore on, FAU became more and more one-dimensional, and USF was finding success on the ground themselves. And Archie was starting to complete passes and looked pretty good in the game. You know, he wasn't great, but he was still good enough to make a difference in the ground game. Dude, the ground game for USF was, 3 guys over 80 yards. That is ridiculous. If you're having 3 players over 80 yards rushing, you're going to have a really monster day. And they did. You know, they pounded them into oblivion. The final score was 44-21. And, at the end, Alex Golish had that very cold handshake with Tom Herman. And Tom Herman lost his mind and couldn't stand that Alex didn't want to even like bother with pleasantries, and he just couldn't stand that Alex like got the best of him there. And it's just like, I don't know, Tom Herman's a bit of a clown over the years. He's done some very like sad things, and it's just whatever, dude, is what it is. But USF total 525 total yards. They did give up a ton of yards to FAU, but I mean, after like the second quarter, they outscored them 37-7. So like, I don't know. They were moving the ball in garbage time, so they were getting a lot of those yards there. USF was making stops, at the end, getting fourth down stops. You know, they held them to 1 of 5 on fourth down. And, at 4-4, this USF team is a lot better than I think people are probably realizing, because they just think, oh, those losses early on and 4 losses is the end of the world. But honestly, I was never like writing this team off. I knew the schedule was getting easier as the year went on, and I was like, they just need to get through. And once they get through the back half of the schedule, they're going to really up their record and look a lot better. You know, some of these teams come into the year and they don't play anyone for 5 or 6 games. So they start off 5-1, 6-0, and it looks all great. And it's like, oh, things are amazing. But then it's like they start playing teams and they lose. Well, USF didn't have that luxury. They had to start the season with Miami and Alabama and Tulane and Memphis. And those were the 4 hardest teams in their schedule. And it was within the first 5 or 6 games of the season. So like, they didn't really have a chance to like tune up to this stuff. They just had to jump into it. And they held their own in the Alabama and Miami games for the most part. And I think by the time they got to Tulane, they were already beat up, and like, Byron Brown was, injured so bad, it was a collective at that point that were just battered and bruised. But I'm telling you, win out, they have a chance against Navy. I don't think Navy has the defense that people realize. And so, like, USF should be able to score on them. And if they can just force some turnovers from Navy, which Navy is turnover prone, then USF can win that game. It's going to be a very close game. I feel like it's probably going to be like that game in, like, was it 2016 or 2015 where it was like a track meet?
Yeah.
Basically, like USF kept scoring, but then Navy was right back there with them. I feel like that's going to probably be the same thing here. But great win for USF. It was obviously a tough week losing Coach AAR, and the guys had a heavy heart. They put the stickers on the back of the helmet, and they made the university proud. And it's been a tough week. Losing him was probably one of the most like shocking things I've seen in like college sports in a long time, because he was a young man. And credit to USF for I know it wasn't their program specifically, but it still affects them, because they said how close Alex Golish was with Coach AAR, and like they were close. They were like hung out a lot, and they had similar age, and they got like similar family sizes. They've got young kids, and it's a shame. It really is tough to see stuff like that. But USF with a huge win, and next week against Navy, we'll see where it goes. But Ian, your thoughts? I know I was talking too long on this.
So for me in this game, this was the running game and attack I've been waiting to see all season. You were right. 3 players with 80 plus yards, and especially guys like Naquan Wright and Kelly Joyner just ripping it off. And that was the game plan I was saying they needed to attack with, make it easier for Bryce Archie. They really did a good job, the offensive line, of creating holes right down the middle and just having those explosive plays. And at the very least, they were averaging at least like 4 or 5 yards per carry every play. So it makes it more manageable for either a quick pass or another run. So they were playing very like kind of nickel and dime type offense, which is what you kind of have to do right now. And they just wore out FAU. FAU just couldn't keep up. Especially with that no huddle attack. They ran out of gas because there's so much energy, just trying to recognize the play, especially towards the end. And then you got to go chase down Naquan Wright or Kelly Joyner. I mean, dude, good luck. Overall, this was a really good win for USF, but it was a needed one too, because obviously after what happened last year, and it keeps them in good standing to still make a bowl game with the schedule coming up. The only other one thing I want to add, I'm very against being, shall we say, rude or mean to players or coaches, because I don't know, with the exception of like, if you're doing a bad job, I'm going to tell you that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tom Herman's a complete and total jackass. I'm sorry. Like, dude, you cannot, I get it. They had every right to run up the score. I don't have a problem with them running up the score. It's USF's job to stop you last year. Yeah. But then when the assistant coaches are going at it in the preseason, especially when it was the Boca Raton Bowl and USF was chiming back, and you're going to create that kind of storm for this game when your game is over. And I've seen this, like, when it's this is getting to the edge of a rivalry pretty much with these two.
Yeah.
You don't need to like exchange dinner reservations. You just shake hands and that's it. And it doesn't matter how it is. So the fact that Golish slaps it probably with authority, because that was a big win for him because he got blown out last year. Slaps it, shakes it, go. That's all you need to do. You don't need to go. You look like a complete jerk chasing him down, yelling at him, and you look like the idiot. The only thing I texted this to George, I said, there is a reason Texas is doing better without him. That was where I was going to end it.
Yeah, exactly. Wasn't he the last coach before Sark?
Yep.
Yeah, and last year USF lost by 41 points, and this year they won by 23. So that's 64-point differential from last year to this year. That's huge. And
Yeah.
you know, I don't blame Golish for being, you know, cold to him. Like he didn't have to kiss his ass. Tom Herman was a jerk to him last year, and you know, Alex was like, you know what, whatever, man. I'm just gonna shake his hand and walk off, and he did. And then Herman like looked like a little like I don't know. It was so sad. It was like
The funniest was Golish not even looking at him. He
yeah,
didn't look at him when he shook his hand, and when Herman was, it was literally like a Karen moment.
yeah,
Is
it
what
was
it
like,
was.
dude, like you're talking to the manager. Excuse me, manager. There's a
Yeah.
problem here, and Alex is like, yeah, I don't care. I don't care. And you know, that's honestly why I like Golish a lot, is because he doesn't like. I don't know. There's just something about him where he just doesn't give a crap about certain things, and I appreciate that because he, you know, I don't know. Just last year, I don't know why the game got as bad as it did last year. I don't remember what happened. I think there was a lot of turnovers, and you know, whatever. It was one bad game, and you know, USF got blown out that game. I know there's a couple other stinkers, but that was one of them. And you know, because FAU really wasn't that good last year,
Mhm.
and you know, it's just like I don't know. Like they were talking so much trash. I know the one guy was saying stuff about lipstick on a pig for the, you know, Raymond James uh field turf when they had like exotic cars on the stadium. And it's like, I don't know. It was just, and they're also trying to make this happen, make this a rivalry. I just want USF to get into a Power Five conference or Power Four conference. I like, you know, like no offense to FAU, they're never getting into you know, a Power Four conference. I mean, they may, I don't know. I mean, I don't think so. I want USF to get into a better place, and it feels like being in a rivalry with FAU doesn't get you there. And no offense to them, but it's like, and they have a nice stadium. Their stadium's a
Yeah.
decent size, and it's like, you know, I don't know. And it's weird because like their basketball program got to the Final Four, but like basketball is completely different. Like, you know, lower level programs can still make a run in the tournament regardless of where you're at in your conference. And like, you know, but football is completely different. And I don't think FAU is ever going to get to that level, like a Power Four. I may, it may happen. Who knows? But let's move on because you know, like I think we beat this dead
Yeah.
horse pretty severely. Okay, the next game we had was Boise State, San Diego State. I want to get your thoughts first because I don't know too much about San Diego State, and I want to hear your thoughts on this game before I jump in.
Well, San Diego State's run defense was not great. I remember we said that on the preview, and they were actually doing pretty good in the first half. But that's the one. This is the thing when you have a running back like Genty and an offense built around him. Again, they're going to wear you down. You will like have to keep up with your energy and stamina through the whole 4 quarters because it is a 4-quarter game with Boise State. They pull no punches, and sure enough, they ripped it off in the end. They were up. I remember in the first half, Genty didn't like he had less than 100 yards, and then he finished the game with 149. He had the 2 TDs, and they were just running away with it well into halftime. But this was kind of just like outclassed right now because actually the passing game, that was the one thing with in this game that Boise State did very good. They knew Genty was going to, you know, be the target, and they did a good job containing him. But Madsen of Boise State, he still threw for 300 yards, had the 4 touchdowns, and then once they were playing back a bit, and they had to because of the lead they had, then they were able to feed Genty. And if that's your guy that you need to give to ice the game, so be it. That you cannot pick a better back to ice the game for. But overall, really good win for Boise State. Again, with San Diego State's defense, they just really couldn't keep up. The road definitely is looking a bit easier now. I know they play Oregon State to end the year, but they have games at Wyoming and I think San Jose State, and those should be manageable. And they play Nevada.
Nevada.
But
Yeah.
these are games that are well within hand for Boise State.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Genty was kind of bottled up the first half, and I think San Diego State did a good job of like limiting him, but also Boise State went to the pass more, and he was effective. Like you said, he had over 300 yards, and they were just hitting hitting his targets all over the field, like for the whole first half. And then Genty comes in the second half and just dominates. And he still has a really good shot of getting to New York for sure. If he's going to win, he's going to have to put up some huge games again. And he has opportunities here. Nevada, San Jose State, and Wyoming. I mean, he could put up 300 yards in one of these games and then really like set the pace for the Heisman stuff. I think he went over 20 touchdowns in this game, which is a huge number. I mean, if he gets to 30 touchdowns, I would be hard pressed not to give it to him Heisman wise, because that's an unreal number. That's a quarterback number
Yeah.
of touchdowns, and if he does it, that's regardless of who he's playing. That's unreal. Okay, moving on to the big game of Saturday, number 3 against number 4, Penn State, Ohio State in Happy Valley. You know, I came into this game saying that Penn State was not good enough to win this game. I have never been impressed with Drew Alar. I am still not impressed with Drew Alar, and it's the reality. The kid is like a decent quarterback, and he may even like get to the NFL as like a backup, which, good for him. I think there's enough there to get there, but he just cannot beat quality teams, and either can James Franklin. James Franklin is now like, I think he's 1-10 against Ohio State in his career at Penn State, and I'm just like, I don't get it. I like, this team has a lot of talent. Franklin is not a bad coach at all. He just cannot beat good teams. Like, he is like, it's just one of these things where they're like, it's also one of these things where it could be where once you eventually do get over the hump, then you start beating these teams. Like, because for years, Clemson, there used to be that thing where it'd be, oh, they're Clemsoning, a good team that loses to good, better, like good quality teams as well. And it's like, maybe Penn State will get over that hump eventually. I don't know. And people thought it would be this game, but their fans were really pissed. And I mean, this game was close. Ohio State's defense looked really good. They were making a lot of stops. They had a late stop in the fourth quarter in a goal to go situation. And, Penn State got no points there. And, Ohio State, Howard looked kind of rough early. That pick six put Penn State up 10-0. And he just came back. Howard came back, answers 10, puts them on the board 10-7, goes right back down again, 14-10. They even had another drive where they had a fumble loss in the end zone for a touchback, where if that's not fumbled, they're likely up at that point 21-10. And I don't know. The saving grace, though, was the defense for Ohio State for the most part of this game, because Penn State was driving in the second half, or not in the second quarter before half, and they got an interception in the end zone for a touchback, and that pretty much capped that drive. And then they got a field goal after that, and that was basically it. And like, Penn State had 2 field goals in this game outside of a pick six. So their offense was responsible for 6 points. You cannot win in major college football against the big dogs if you're going to score 6 points. I don't care who you are. Like, I know Penn State's defense is good, but you're not good enough to beat these teams with 6 points of offense. It's just not going to happen. Field goals do not win you championships. I'm just going to say that right now. Ian, your thoughts? You're muted. I can't hear you.
Sorry, I think I hit the wrong button there. So it's been the same story with Penn State. It always feels like they're hitting like that glass ceiling. And it's not just with Ohio State. It's whenever it's a top 10 team, either in a bowl game or, on the road or in the Big Ten, Ohio State, Michigan, any of these teams. They were off to they got the pick six. You're up 10-0. And you would have thought that would be enough momentum to really get enough distance between Ohio State. Because I said if Ohio State, they keep it at 10 points, they're not going to hang on. They need to at least produce more. And you brought it up. The offense has been terrible in these games for Penn State. Like you said, 6 points is not good enough on offense. Your one touchdown was a defensive pick six. You cannot do that. You cannot rely on your defense on that, especially with an offense as good as Ohio State. And even more so with as good as Ohio State's defense is, mix up the coverage, mix up, the routes, something. Don't be so predictable. And that's what it came down to. It was it was first down, run, second down, maybe pass, depending on how that run. It was like Ohio State knew what they were calling. And the one time they actually did drive down, it was intercepted in the end zone.
Yeah.
I don't know with Penn State, like they are a good team. And Franklin has said this himself. They are a good team that is on the cusp of being a great team, but they've been on the cusp for many years. And the difference, I think, between like Clemson in the early 2010s and Penn State is like when Penn State won the Big Ten in 2016, they beat Ohio State and then they got kind of snubbed out of the playoff. You should have in that time enough like wins to go back to the Big Ten championship, and they haven't. They just like other teams have passed them up. So they're a good team, but they are still struggling to become an even better team that can really hang with these guys. It's why like whenever they're in like the top 5, I can't take them seriously because they haven't won one since 2016. It's really tough. So the narrative is there. They had a chance to prove it or prove the people wrong, and they didn't silence any doubters.
Yeah, and they I don't know. It's a shame because they look like a program that's doing the right thing and like has the talent there, and I don't know what to say. I mean, it's kind of this thing where it's like, are they ever going to get there? And at this point, he is a decade into this. I don't know if he ever will. Like, this is who he is. And if he is, this type of coach, there's honestly no way of like overcoming that. But stranger things have happened. I mean, maybe he gets a change of pace and goes to another college and things come around. I don't know. Who knows? But I don't think Penn State's going to fire him. Penn State is loyal to their coaches, and like they, what's his face? Joe Paterno was there for 60 years or whatever. Like they're not in the business of firing coaches. And the only reason Bill O'Brien left was because he left for a college job or an NFL job. And like, I fully believe that if James Franklin wants to stay at Penn State, he's going to stay, and Penn State is not going to push him out.
If I've learned anything with Penn State, it takes either a absolutely awful scandal or the coach dying for them to get like a new one. That's what I've learned in my time being alive.
Or both.
Or both.
I did want to point out Ohio State's upcoming schedule. They have 2 easy ones, Purdue at home, Northwestern on the road. They should win both of those easily. But the last 2 weeks is Indiana in Columbus and then Michigan in Columbus. So they get the games, they're 2 tough games at home. But I'm telling you, man, this Indiana-Ohio State game, because it'll basically be for a berth to the Big Ten championship game. So like, it's going to be exciting. I am like super pumped for that game because, I mean, that is intriguing. Like, if Rourke stays healthy and Indiana keeps, destroying teams, this game will be like one of the bigger games that we've seen in the Big Ten outside of a Michigan, Ohio State, or Ohio State, Penn State game in a long time. So, okay, let's move on to Miami Duke. Now, this game was a lot closer than the final score shows. Miami wins 53-31, but Miami was down like 10 points in the third quarter. And, Duke was moving the ball. I've said this all year. Miami does not have a defense. Like, if they come up against a team that has a decent offense and a good defense, that they're going to lose, because right now they've been playing teams that have like terrible defenses and like somewhat okay offenses. And some of these okay offenses are moving up and down the field on them. I will say Miami's offense is really good. Like, they have a bevy of receivers. The two running backs they use are really good. And Cam Ward's having a stellar year. There's no denying that. But Cam Ward, throws another terrible pick running to his right in the middle of the field. I mean, I know he like can get away with this now because Miami is up in these games, but like, you go to the NFL, like, that's not going to fly. Like, you can't do that crap in the NFL. And that's why I don't think he's going to be a top, like a first round pick, but he may, just because of the fact that there's going to be so much hype around him, and he's going to probably flounder, I would think. No, I mean, Duke looked good, most of this game. And then it was like, once you got to the fourth quarter, Miami just started, scoring at will. There was a bunch of turnovers by Duke that really led to those late scores. And, I didn't think Duke was going to win this game, but it was a pleasant surprise to see it close. I actually was trying not to watch the game once it got to a certain point, because I was like, I've watched the game when they were losing and they still ended up winning. So I was like, I'm not going to watch it this time, and they still end up winning. So whatever. I don't know. My hate watch didn't work out, but no. I don't know. This Miami team, I tell you, once they play a decent team, and now I'm thinking, because of the results from Saturday, it looks likely that SMU is going to be the team they play in the ACC championship game. I like SMU's chance in that game because SMU destroyed Pitt, and we'll talk about that later. But, Miami, once they start playing good teams, they'll play SMU in the ACC championship game. They'll play, a team in the quarterfinals. And I just don't think they're as good as they probably think they are, and that the media is hyping them up, because the offense is good. So they think, oh yeah, the offense can score on anyone. But like, if they play a halfway decent defense and play a team that can score like pretty significantly, they're going to struggle. And I think, I don't know. I don't think they're going to perform well in the ACC championship game or the playoffs. But your thoughts, Ian?
I mean, you definitely are totally right. It's kind of like a one-trick pony with them. Their offense is by far elite, and it is, in my opinion, the best offense in the country. Yeah. And Cam Ward is one of the best quarterbacks and players in the country. But for the love of God, okay, Vatek, Cal, Louisville was close, and then this one. These are teams that Miami is unequivocally better than on paper in every facet. Yeah. Why they keep them in this game is beyond me. And it's the one thing where for me, it's kind of smoke and mirrors. I can't yes, they have won, and I'm not going to take anything away from that. And they do deserve to be in the top 5. But it's always in the back of everybody's mind now that Is that going to fly if they have to play Texas, Georgia, these teams where they will not let you get away with that? Because they went down, Oregon.
State.
They went down 28-17 at one point in the third quarter, and then it was only an 8-point game well into the fourth. And then in the fourth quarter, they coasted. They are the kings of the fourth quarter. I'll give them that. And that is really going to be crucial once it gets late into the season. But again, that defense is very suspect, and there's only so much you can rely on Cam Ward in that offense to bail you out of, because, they got lucky with Vatek, and somehow Cal self-imploded and all that. So again, if you ride your luck for too long, it's going to run out and it's going to bite you. And that's what Miami's looking like they're doing right now.
Yeah. I mean, they have ridden this last month and a half, and, the Vatek and Cal games, they probably should have lost. And somehow they, got help from the ACC. And the last 2 weeks, they really haven't needed the help there, because they were pretty, dominant in the fourth quarter of those games. But even in the Louisville game, there was a questionable call. That should have probably been a fumble. I mean, the more I looked at that replay, Cam Ward looked like he fumbled that ball, and it wasn't a pass forward. But whatever, regardless, they're here. They're 9-0. And we'll probably see them in the ACC championship game. Okay, let's move on to Ole Miss, Arkansas. This game was never close. Ole Miss just dominated. They were up, I think 35-3 at one point, and just took it to them. No, not 35-3. They were up 35-10. Sorry, and the Ole Miss offense was cooking. They didn't run the ball a ton, but Jackson Dart, 515 yards, 6 TDs. Jordan Watkins, the receiver for Ole Miss, 254 yards, 5 TDs, which is insane. And Green for Arkansas, was in and out of the lineup. They finally benched him for Malachi Singleton, and just they had no answer for them. And but they still put up a ton of yards. It was mainly just because Ole Miss was ahead so much that they were just playing at that point, wear out the clock and just get out of the game, which they did, because Arkansas did score some points in the second half, but it didn't matter because Ole Miss had 694 total yards. They just obliterated them, and this game was never close. And, Ole Miss, I know they had those 2 losses, but, if they keep winning out, there is a chance they could get in the playoff, which I believe they might. They have 2 really tough games at the end here. Well, one specifically, Georgia, but it's at Ole Miss in Oxford. So they, we'll see what happens there. That's next week. And then 2 weeks later, they've got the Gator game, but obviously DJ Lagway may not be there for that game. So, that's not for 3 weeks. So maybe DJ Lagway's there. Who knows? It sounded like he's having an MRI, DJ Lagway, and we'll talk more about that later. But those 2 games, if they win those 2 games, they beat Mississippi State, boom, they backdoor into the playoff, not having to play the SEC championship game. And then they might have a home playoff game, which would be a very intriguing home playoff game in Oxford at the Grove. That'd be a great environment for a home playoff game. So we'll see. No one wants to play this offense. This offense is really clicking right now. And it's crazy that they even lost the games that they did, because they should have beat LSU, and they barely lost to that Kentucky team, which I still don't see how that happened, but whatever. I think Ole Miss, because they were written off for dead after that LSU loss, that people have kind of forgot about them. But this was a real rude awakening for everyone. Hey, they're a team to reckon with, and they're going to be there right there on the doorstep of the playoff. But your thoughts, Ian?
Yeah, and that was an offense and game where you could tell they were playing angry because they lost to LSU 2 weeks ago and they didn't have the prettiest looking game against Oklahoma, and they're kind of trying to find a way to snake in right now. So best way to do that is just blow teams out. And yeah, Ole Miss was absolutely on fire in this game. Like you said, Jackson Dart had a great game, 500 yards, 6 touchdowns, and Watkins, 5 of those were his. And they were able to force 2 turnovers on Arkansas. It was just an Ole Miss game. They were up like 56-17 at one point in the third. It was a complete demolition. And just showing how scary this offense really is. Like you said, it was a reminder to the country that, yes, this offense can be that good and is very dangerous. So if they put enough distance on teams, it'll be really tough for them to come back in games.
Okay, let's move on to Army Air Force. I want to hear your thoughts on this game because I know you know more about Air Force than I do, but I definitely want to talk about this after you do. Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah, and the game, it is what I said. It was kind of like a old backyard money type game. It was 6-3 going into halftime. We only had 2 total touchdowns the whole game. Of course, they were rushing. That was, I believe, Udo, the running back. He had 150 plus yards. The real thing that killed it, and I said this about Air Force, is that offensively is like they have struggled and they committed 3 turnovers, and you can't do that with Army, especially when Army's trying to play keep away with you. A lot of those drives were, long, it was like a 6-minute drives on their 2 touchdown drives. It was, and at that point, Army just couldn't keep up. Air Force did not have enough talent to keep in the game, and they just couldn't, they really hurt themselves. They would have had to play perfect and more to really overcome Army, and with the offense they played, there was just no shot. Once it was a 2-score game, it was out of their reach.
Yeah, and credit to Army without their quarterback Daly, and the guy that came in, the backup, played well enough, and he didn't make mistakes, which honestly, that is the key. There were no turnovers and, just a small amount of penalties, and they played well enough to win. And that's all they had to do because I'm almost positive Daly is coming back next week. And, so he did what they needed to do. They needed to get through this game, and Air Force at 1-6 coming into the game was obviously not going to be a challenge no matter what. Army was just better than that team. But, next week is going to be a tough game. North Texas is a feisty team. But then after that, they've got Notre Dame. And, I think Daly will have to play North Texas for them to win because I don't know if they're good enough to win without him. But if he's there, I think they have a really good shot against North Texas. And then you know what? Anything can happen in that Notre Dame game. And, we'll see. But I'm rooting for this team. Like I said, I was in Army ROTC at USF for a year. So I definitely root for Army at all times. So I'm really excited to see what happens. So I'm hoping they shock the world, but we'll see. Okay, moving on to Oregon, Michigan. I didn't think this game was going to be a challenge for Oregon, and it really wasn't. Oregon outscores Michigan in the second quarter 21-3 and really got ahead so much that Michigan really didn't have a chance. It was close at first, but then just, Oregon just coasted. Davis Warren for Michigan is just an average quarterback at best, maybe even worse than that. Orji can't throw the forward pass. Dylan Gabriel looked great here, 294 yards. Jordan James running the ball looked really good. Trayshawn Holden had a really good game. I think Johnson for Oregon went out in the game early, so that kind of changed things around how they were doing things. But Oregon looked really good. They were making plays, and Michigan's offense is very inept. They can't score more than 17 or 24 points in every game they play. And they're just not a team that is on the caliber of Oregon. And it showed. And Oregon is just, a juggernaut right now. They beat Ohio State, and, they're beating teams by at least 20 points every time they play somebody that isn't like a top tier team. So they're doing the things they need to do. And, they're outpacing everyone right now. They're definitely the best team in the country, offensively, defensively. Like, they're a complete team. They should easily beat Maryland and Wisconsin next 2 weeks. The Washington game is a rivalry game, so there might be a little tougher there, but they also have a bye week in between that, so they'll be able to rest up into that. They'll have to play the Big Ten championship game, probably either Ohio State or Indiana, a rematch with Ohio State. So we'll see, but likely it's almost a guarantee that Oregon is in the playoff, regardless of seed, but they're playing for a first round bye and to be able to play one of those quarterfinal games. So I think they can, and I think they're going to do it. But your thoughts, Ian?
Yeah, if you need to look at a statistic that kind of tells you the tale of the game, Oregon doubled their offensive production that Michigan had. They had 470 yards and Michigan had 270, and Michigan was only able to muster 11 first downs. Michigan, at the very least, the one turnover they got, they needed to capitalize on field position, and when they got the one turnover early on the muff punt, they were at least on the right side of the 50. But if it was on the wrong side of the 50, no shot. They just had nowhere near. They had one really good drive that was in the third quarter, and then after that, just Oregon, they were playing an Oregon style game, and the defense, which was the real crux for Michigan, really couldn't stop either the pass or run. They didn't put a spy on Gabriel for some reason, and it was as easy as a win as you could get in the big house for Oregon. It kind of just showed how much better Oregon is right now.
For sure. Okay. Here we go. I've been dreading
Let's
this
just
all
get this
day.
over with.
Yeah. I've been, very. I feel like I'm in like this like twilight zone where, and we talked about it, feeling that we're cursed, and it's been since 2008 that a lot of stuff have happened to this team. If it's recruiting, if it's for suspensions, it's for injuries or for whatever. And it feels like it doesn't happen to other teams the way that it happens to Florida. For whatever reason, just all this stuff seems to happen, just whatever. Like, Florida finally recruits a really good quarterback, and, the starting quarterback goes down and he comes in and it looks great. And it's like, oh, he's going to do amazing. And he started the game off so amazing. Like, DJ, wasn't perfect in that first part of the game, but, they were up 10-3 and it looked like they were dominating, and it felt different. Like the feeling of that game it hasn't felt like that since, because even in the year that Trask beat Georgia, Georgia was up like 14-0, I think, early. And so like no game has felt like that in years. And so like, the defense was making stops, getting turnovers, and, they were Florida was moving the ball and things were happening. And it was like, oh man, this may actually happen. And then I don't know what it is. It's just like, we just can't have nice things. And DJ, that field, I got to admit, that field is atrocious. We already lost Shamar James last year to a non-contact injury. And now this year, another person of significance gets injured on a non-contact. It's just, that field is terrible. I don't get how an NFL field could be that terrible. And it's a shame because, I don't know what happens in that game if DJ's if he's healthy. I think Florida has a really good shot of winning it. I mean, that game was 20-20 with like 6 minutes left to go in the game. And you're not telling me like if DJ's in there, like you're not like that game could be completely different. That Florida could have won by like 10 points. And I don't know. It's frustrating. It is. I feel like this team is getting better. The defense looked great. Like, Aaron Gates, man, the kid is just amazing. Like, he's in the backfield, he's breaking up passes, he's intercepting passes. He's just got that knack. And like, I don't know what it is. The kid just, man, he is showing out like huge. And to get the injuries that they did, and it was just like mounting. Like, there was a drive where there was like 3 or 4 secondary players that just went down, and I'm like, what is going on? Like, it was a very tough game to watch after DJ got hurt. Credit to third string quarterback Warner. He did his best, but he's just not a talented guy. It's just is what it is. And I don't think most teams are going to rely on your third string quarterback to do anything against the second ranked team in the country. I mean, that's just the reality. Like, but he held his own, and they were right there with them, to the very end. And, it was tough, man. It really is tough. I don't know what to say. I'm at a loss for words how this game went down. I'm tired of losing to Georgia, but I'm just tired of losing in general. And I don't know. I don't know what to do. I really don't. I've never been so flummoxed with how a team is operating. There is talent all over this team. That's what's crazy. Like, even into like punter, kicker, the secondary, the D line, the linebackers, the wide receivers, the O line seems to be playing better. Like, run game, like the running backs, like Jane Baugh and Jackson were all over the place. And it's just like, for whatever reason, they cannot put this together. It is beyond maddening, and I'm just over it. And I don't know what to do, because it's like, do we fire Billy Napier and like figure this out? I don't know. Like, I want to fire him, but then at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I just want out of this hole. I'm like, feels like we're in purgatory, and it's like the show Lost, where like they don't even know what to do, and they're just like trying to find the smoke monster. That's all we're doing. We're just chasing smoke, and it's just a waste of time. But your thoughts, Ian?
So it was heartbreaking, because I said the one thing Florida had to do was play perfect and more, and needing Georgia needed to play at their worst for Florida to really have a chance. And while Georgia 3 interceptions, and Georgia was not looking good. And look, for Georgia, this is not a good win. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not being mean, but this is not a good looking win when most of the team of Florida is on their third strings, and you have to wait till the fourth quarter to really put them away. Because let's be real, Georgia should have run away with this game, because at that point the talent disparity between the two was even greater, and Florida still on it. They tied it in the third, and the thing was, though, is I knew they just don't have enough. And now that's the thing. If Lagway is in, I'm not saying they win, but they have a better chance to win in that moment when they tie it, because they were only able to get 10 points on the board after turnovers. And one of those was like a dead drive. So Lagway at least would provide a better spark, give you better chance, give that Georgia secondary some cause about whether you play to the run, whether he runs, or he's going to like just throw an absolute lawn dart deep down the field. And now, once he was down, I just knew again, that was your best chance with this team, because, Wilson was out still. And it just sucks. There's no other way to put it. It just sucks, because I'm not saying they win, but they have a better chance to winning, because Georgia was doing everything Florida would want them to do in that game, getting to back, getting those 3 turnovers. But when you have your, kind of catalyst on the other side of the ball out, there's nothing you can do. This is the one time I will not get on Napier for that because there's nothing you can do about that.
Yeah.
But man, it was, I don't know. It just flat out sucks.
It does. And it's really frustrating because there are moments of like flashes of stuff and it's like, oh, this looks good. And it's like, oh, I mean, that they get that first turnover and DJ throws that absolute dime to Mizell, and I was just like, oh man, here we go. This is exactly what I thought was possible with DJ that he could do even against this team, and he was doing it, and then it was just like so cruelly taken away from us, and taken away from him, and I hate that for him because like that was, dude, that game right there, that was going to be DJ's coming out party. That was going to be to the national media, to everybody. Like, here is DJ Lagway. And he had that opportunity, and cruelly, it's just taken away from everybody. And it's like, man, like such a shame. And it's like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like at 4-4, they're not completely written off for a bowl game at this point because they should be able to beat Florida State even with their third string quarterback, and then maybe even DJ's back by then. But it's going to be tough because they got to beat, I don't think they're going to beat Texas at all. I don't think they have a shot, but, they got to beat either Ole Miss or LSU, and it's going to be really tough. Like, Ole Miss is going to score a ton of points, and, like, I don't think Florida can keep up unless DJ's there. And the LSU game is probably going to be the same thing. So it's like, I don't know. It's going to be really tough. They have to win another game in those 3 games to be able to get the bowl eligibility. And then again, it's 3 years in a row of, or 4 years in a row of losing seasons, which is just, oh God, I can't take it anymore. We need to start winning. All right. Okay. Let's move on to Iowa State, Texas Tech. I'm blown away that Texas Tech won this game because I was watching it as I was watching the Florida game, but then I had to do some work and I was unable to watch the rest of it. Iowa State takes the lead late, and then Texas Tech gets that late touchdown and just dagger in the hearts of the Iowa State fans. And, Iowa State has never had a really like solidly good team where they're like 11-12 winning, seasons, or 11-12 game win seasons. They've only had like 1-10 win season like ever or something like that. It's kind of ridiculous how they've been kind of close, but not even like really that close. So I don't know. This loss, I don't think it's the end of the world for Iowa State. I think it's kind of telling, though, that they struggled against UCF and barely won that, and then lose here late to Texas Tech, even though Texas Tech is not bad. But they got to show out against Kansas. It's a tough one against Cincinnati. Utah will be tough as well, and then Kansas State. So they have a 4-game stretch that good luck. I don't know if they're going to get through it with more than – they're going to have at least one loss in that 4-game stretch. But they have an outside chance of getting in the playoff, but it's going to be tough. I don't know. I don't know if I really like this Iowa State team that much. They're strong enough on offense, but their defense isn't amazing. I don't know. Your thoughts, Ian?
So that was kind of a case in point where field goals won't win you games because Iowa State had some drives where they were like within the 20 near the red zone and all that. And they kicked a 21-yard field goal in the fourth quarter. And then I think it was like a 37-yarder in the second when they were knocking on the door for a touchdown. And instead they went for 3. But that has nothing to do with I'm not saying you go for it there, but when you are in the red zone, your play calling and your players need to play at a higher level. because you cannot leave points off the board, where Iowa State could have had maybe 12 more points if they capitalized on one, especially that 21-yard field goal. They were driving. It was a 72-yard drive. If you get one of those first downs and find a way to get in the end zone, this game, like, Texas Tech can't catch up at that point. So it was very disappointing for Iowa State. And for the defense, it was like bend, and it just broke at the worst time. They gave up a huge, it was a 71-yard drive in the fourth to lose the game pretty much. And it just, the absolute most brutal time to give one of those up. And then I think they gave up a 98-yard drive in the third quarter as well. So there was a lot of bend, but man, it broke at the worst times.
Yeah, and I don't know. It happens in games like this where it's like, you're not able to do the things that you want, and then it just ends up collapsing on you. And at that last drive that Texas Tech had, credit to them, because they just kept coming and did not give up there, and they get the answer, or they get the score, and it just, I would be sick if I was Iowa State. But they had the same thing last week against UCF, so they had the reverse. So they just got kind of like a
they've got the Uno reverse card.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Going into, Cignetti, dude. Cignetti and this Indiana Hoosiers team, 47-10 against Michigan State. Dominate these guys. This game was never really close. Well, they were up. Michigan State was up 10-0 early, but Indiana just outscores them 47-0 after that. Rourke looked really good. Didn't look like his thumb was bothering him at all. He was able to make plays all game long. They look really good, man. I know I've been on them since that UCLA game, but it's like, I don't know if people realize how good they are. I think they're like, oh, they're undefeated, whatever. They're scoring, every game that Rourke's been in, they've basically scored 40 plus points. They beat every team that they play by like at least 2 scores. They defensively, they're one of the best defensive teams in the country. Offensively, they're amazing. There is this team, which is not like, I can't even imagine what they are on the composite, the 24/7 composite recruiting rankings, because it's got to be considerably low. And they are just dominating better talent because Cignetti is that good of a coach. This guy, I'm telling you, man, get him at a real program. Like, no offense to Indiana, but you guys are not a real program. And like, get him to a major program. He is going to destroy people, like literally going to tear their hearts out. I know he's older, he's 63, but if he coaches for 10 more years and if he goes to a really good school, he could get like 2 or 3 championships. I honestly don't doubt it, because he's that good of a coach, and it is unreal. Like, I'm looking at these stats. Michigan State had 229 passing yards, but they ended up with 193 total yards because they had negative 36 rushing yards. Like, they were that good. Like, this Indiana team is unreal, and it is a joy to watch. I am really happy. Like, I try to go out of my way to watch their games every Saturday. I didn't get a chance to watch it live, but I watched most of it on the recap, and like, these guys are really good. And if you have not watched them play, please check it out, because it is fun to watch. They are like, the offense is throwing all over the place, and they're always making plays. I'm looking at this stat line for their defense, and it's just littered with sacks. And just, I know Michigan State's not good, but still, like, this Indiana team is for real, and I cannot wait for that Ohio State Indiana game, because that game is going to be a blockbuster. I'm calling it right now, and I'm super excited for that. But the Indiana gets Michigan before that, which I think Indiana should easily win that game. And that'll be fun because they get a home game like that. So that's a real like nice crescendo for the season. They get to have that moment of destroying like a previous foe that they've had such a hard time against for years. And like they'll be able to dominate them. And then, dude, that Ohio State game, dude, I cannot wait for this. I am super pumped for this. Is probably like now this might be the biggest game of the year, and I'm super excited for it. But Ian, your thoughts?
Yeah, and you hit all the points. Indiana just came out. They went into it was I think the first quarter time they ended a quarter not with the lead. And then after that, they're like, okay, well, we'll wake up. And they just absolutely obliterated Michigan State. It was that's the funniest stat is that they did have those passing yards, but 193 total. And Indiana was just, sharp and precise with their passing with work. And Michigan State, again, it's just they don't have the firepower to keep up with a team like Indiana right now. And Indiana just coasted that. Yeah, 47 unanswered points. You're not going to win, any game, whoever you are, giving that up. And Indiana, another blowout win for them.
All right, let's move on to, I'm telling you, man, Nebraska, UCLA. This dude, finally, the offense seems to really be clicking. I don't know what it is. I really think it's Bieniemy just like feeling his way around this and like finally understanding what he needs to be doing. But the offense looked really good. They were up. What were they were up? I think they were up 27-10. No, 27.
They were up 27-7.
27-7. And, Nebraska gets some late scores to make it look closer. But, this offense was looking great early. They were making a lot of plays. And I will say this, Garber's coming back from the dead. He looked terrible in those first, 5 or 6 games of the season. And the last 2 weeks, he's just really turned it on. And he looks like a completely different player. This is a very good win. This is not like the Rutgers win where Rutgers is kind of whatever. This Nebraska team, has played pretty well throughout the year. And, this is a good win. And, this is a lot to build on. I'm really happy that they are kind of turning around, it looks like. And their schedule is still tough the rest of the year, but, credit to them for not giving up because they could easily have packed it in, but they have not. And they've really, stood on business and, they could beat this Iowa team next week. I know Iowa's looking a little frisky. Washington's going to be a tough game, USC obviously, but they should beat Fresno State. So at least if they get 2 more wins, then they have a really good shot of getting to a bowl game. But we'll see. I'm, considering that this team was left for dead, this is a huge win for them. And, I'm excited for them because this means the season's not over and they're not giving up, which is good. Your thoughts, Ian?
This was a game where Nebraska absolutely slept and didn't turn the snooze button off or turn the snooze button on. I was actually really disappointed with Nebraska. This was honestly the most surprising win to me, and it wasn't even ranked teams because I thought Nebraska is better on paper than UCLA, and I thought Nebraska would have come out really motivated because they, have lost 3 in a row now. They lost a really close one to Ohio State, just got blown out to Indiana, and they come home to UCLA, which should have been a better win. Now, Raiola did get injured. He got injured late, but regardless, you were down 27-7 going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Dude, like that is just bad. You can't do that. Nebraska, this was a game for them to win, just to really feel good about the team and remind them that they are very good, or not very good, but can still win these type of games because now they got to go on the road to USC and try to win out in that one, which is good luck. But it's a really bad look for Nebraska, but for UCLA, give them credit. They jumped on the Cornhuskers and they took full advantage of them sleeping at the wheel.
All right. last couple of games we got here, we got a bunch of upsets. I'm going to mention real quick Houston beating Kansas State. So that was a huge upset. I didn't have that as one of our games, so I didn't include it in my wrap up, but I cannot believe it because I think highly of this Kansas State team, and I'm kind of amazed that they lost to this Houston team. Just kind of ridiculous. But let's move on to Clemson, Louisville. I mean, Louisville was ahead of this game almost like the entire way through. Like it, and Shuck didn't even really look that good. He just made enough plays that they kept, taking it to him, and they blocked a bunch of field goals, which that was a huge help there because if they hit those 2 field goals, it's a 1-score game. So like literally, they changed the game by blocking those field goals, and one of them was like a layup field goal. It was like literally right in the like end zone. It was like 5 yards out. So they took away a lot of points that really could have changed this game. And credit to Louisville because I think a lot of us thought that Clemson was going to easily win this game and just move on, but Louisville was like, no way, we're coming to it, and they were the better team. And Clemson did not look good on offense. They had 7 points into the fourth quarter. I mean, that is not a good look. Like, if you're a top 11 team in the country, you need to be scoring way more than 7 points into the fourth quarter. But Louisville gets their big win. I don't think they have a real good shot at getting to the ACC championship game. But now Clemson really that's probably it because SMU is undefeated, Miami's undefeated, and they don't play any, like those 3 don't play each other. So like if SMU and Miami wins out, that's who it's going to be. So Clemson's kind of left hole in the bag. You had your shot, Clemson. You had to keep winning. What was that?
Sorry, my roommate. He was, I guess, he's changing his kid.
That's hilarious. No, but no. I mean, I thought Clemson was going to roll and was coming back from that Georgia loss early to really like make a difference in this season. But I don't know. It's a little more of the same. Your thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, that was you pointed it out. Louisville was the better team in this game. They played better, they looked better, they got those blocked field goals. No matter how long they were able to, prevent points. Louisville just took advantage of Clemson's mistakes, and Louisville played mistake-free football. Now, neither team had turnovers, but Louisville was able to capitalize on their field position and able to put enough distance between Clemson where Clemson couldn't keep up. And while Clemson did outgain Louisville, it was mostly when Louisville was playing like this prevent defense. When Louisville, they went up like 26-7 going into the fourth. That's asking a lot out of a Clemson team right now. And as much as, Maffa and Klubnik did have a good game, the rest of the team just really let them down.
Okay. Texas A&M, South Carolina. South Carolina wins 44-20. Dude, they were up 14-0 quick. And, Texas A&M comes back and ties it at half 20-20. But South Carolina just takes it to them and scores, 24 straight points. So, this South Carolina team is very pesky. Sellers is very competent. He makes a lot of plays with his legs and his arm. And, the defense is solid for South Carolina. They held Reed in check for Texas A&M for the most part. And, this A&M team was undefeated in the SEC and was slated, if they won out, to get to the championship game. But now, who knows what will happen to them. But huge win for South Carolina. For years, it felt like this team was going nowhere with Beamer. They're 5-3. I don't even know what to make of them. Like at this point, their schedule, let's see what they have. Vanderbilt's a tough game.
Yeah.
They have Vanderbilt and Missouri. Those are tough games. Wofford, they should win. And then Clemson. So they have a tough road the next 4 weeks outside of the Wofford game. But, they'll definitely get, they'll be bowl eligible, but they have, if they could win 1 or 2 more games outside of that Wofford game, maybe they're, like not a playoff team, but they'd have to win all their games to be a playoff team. But no, I mean, they played well against LSU and probably should have beat LSU. They played well against Alabama, probably should have beat them. They destroyed Oklahoma. They destroyed Kentucky. This is it's a very feisty South Carolina team. I would not want to play them right now if I was one of the big boys. And I'm very curious to this South Carolina Vandy game. I'm definitely going to put it on our list next week for what we talk about. But your thoughts, Ian?
Yeah, and South Carolina's defense was really the MVP of the game. Now, I get that Reed was, pseudo backup quarterback, but they did a good job in containing him. They didn't let him get out of the box too much, and they had their linebackers play back, kind of keep it a spy to where he couldn't run to the outside. And that was really effective, and they were able to get good coverage, and there was no real run game to help Reed out. Sellers and Sanders did a fantastic job. That duo, A&M didn't know which one was coming. Both had over 100 yards. Sellers had, I think, 200 yards of passing or total offense. All in all, there's a really good win. South Carolina played their best game by far all year, and unfortunately for A&M, they had to go in it. Columbia is a tough place to play, too, at night as well, speaking as experience as a Gators fan. So it was always kind of a trap game. And South Carolina definitely did a good job capitalizing there. But all in all, great win for South Carolina, and for A&M, they really got to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, 350 yards for Sellers total, and South Carolina for the day had 530 yards, and they were 244 through the air, 286 on the ground, so it's pretty balanced. Tremendous win for them. Okay, Washington USC. This was such a gut punch. This is like the theme all year for USC. They literally are like, I don't know how these fans are like able to watch this, because this is hard to watch. Every week they play these teams tough, and they get leads, and then they give up the lead late, and then they can't come back, and it's like, I would be miserable if I was a USC fan, and I'm by proxy because I know so many, and like also because we're covering them, I'm like following them now, and it's like, this is tough to watch. I mean, Woody Marks, dude, this kid is a beast. Like, dude, just not Woody Marks, Jaquavius Marks, or is that his nickname? I don't know. I'm confused.
I don't know. I know
because I'm seeing Woody Marks and then Jaquavius.
Woody Marks is the running back.
Yeah, I think his real name is Jaquavius.
Yeah,
but it goes by Woody. But dude, the kid is a stud. Like, I would just run him if you can, but it's also, they're trying to do a balanced offense, and it's just, I don't know. I think they need to lean more into the run. That's what a lot of the USC fans are pissed off about. At least USC fans got the Dodger win on Wednesday, so they can at least deal with that. But I don't know. It's at 4-5. This is really tough to watch, and I feel really bad because it felt like they had a lot of promise this year, and they just couldn't, for whatever reason, make it a reality. I think defensively they played well enough to win. Offensively, Moss had 3 interceptions, which were huge in this game. If he can cut it down to maybe 1 interception or none, they have better shots in this game. But he's been very turnover prone, and it's tough to watch. It really is. Ian, your thoughts before we move on?
Yeah, and it has been the story now with USC this season and last season too, because all their losses have been by 1 possession. They cannot either close games out or win them out. Like, the fact that they were letting Washington into this game is really a shame, because again, USC is better, and they're losing these games to teams they are better than. They lost to
Minnesota.
They lost to Minnesota, Maryland, and now Washington, and
they're
I think
probably
they're
better than Michigan.
Michigan. Yeah. So I don't get it. Like it's, I mean, the one I guess you could say like, well, at least they're not awful at home because their only loss at home is to Penn State. But dude, like Washington, better than those Big Ten teams. If this wasn't like a surprise matchup, you were with them since they were like the Pac-10. And the fact that they let Washington in this game and for a whole fourth quarter, you couldn't score another touchdown with this offense is really, really like troubling. The one thing that actually got me upset was when Lincoln Riley, it was such like I don't think he meant it this way, but they asked him about it and he goes, well, it's not like we're getting our ass kicked. And I went, well, dude, you're still losing.
Yeah, you're still losing games.
It's not the point. Matter. The point is you're still losing those games. That's like something, there was like a lot of copium in that.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, last game we got Pitt, SMU. Kind of a really sneaky big game because it's basically decided who's going to go to the ACC championship game. SMU one loss to BYU, and they smoked them. I mean, this was never close. They were up at one point, 48-11. Pitt gets 2 late scores to make it look closer than it actually was, which it still wasn't even close. It was 23 points. But, yeah, they win 48-25. But, yeah, SMU, Jennings looked great. Brashard Smith had a ton of yards on the ground. Matthew Hibner had a really big game. I mean, this SMU team is no joke. Offensively, they're really solid. And Jennings is just, he's phenomenal. And, they no turnovers, they caused 2 turnovers. The yardage looks close between Pitt and SMU, but that's only because Pitt was getting some garbage time yards. But no, SMU just taking it to them, and this game was never in doubt. And Jennings, I'm telling you, man, this team definitely can compete against Miami, because they have the horses to really score, and they have a good enough defense to make some an opportunistic defense that can force Ward into turnovers, which I clearly think that Ward is a turnover machine. It's just he hasn't played really good defenses yet, and once he does, it's going to be lights out. But your thoughts, Ian, before we end the show?
Yeah, just real quick, SMU just showed like they're really making a splash in their first year in the conference. They just outclassed Pitt this whole game, and once they were getting into the third quarter, it was just coasting to the end. And even then, it was like 48-11 in the fourth. They were still scoring at ease. Jennings was great, and they were able to force the 2 turnovers on Pitt. And there was really nothing Pitt could do to keep up in this game.
Yeah, okay, that's the show. Ian, real quick before we go, do you have a team that might surprise, that might get in the playoff that we're not really focusing on right now that you think has a shot?
I would say now it depends on how I want to see how the playoff rankings are looking. But if there's any team on the outside looking in that could still sneak in, it would probably be either Ole Miss or not that we're not thinking. I would say Ole Miss, and depending on what other group of fives win, Boise State. Boise State, I think, has the best chance of backdooring in. Yeah. But I feel like right now, those would be my 2. I think that I get like Ole Miss has their losses and Boise State is at 6-1. But if Boise State wins that qualifier, they're the best group of 5 they're in. But then after that, and the other one too, still don't count out K-State. I get they lost a really bad game, but they're another one I wouldn't, leave them for dead yet.
Same. I agree. Yeah, because they have some really tough games coming up. Okay, that's the show. Reach us at haterradio.com. For our socials, it is at hater_radio for Instagram, Threads, Twitter, TikTok. For YouTube, it is at Hater Radio. For Facebook, it is Hater Radio CFB. Ian, what are your socials?
Yeah, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. It's at G_Gator_G.
So like, subscribe, follow, comment, everything. Throw it at us, get us in the algorithm, help us out. And last but not least, I wanted to say this before we go. We are officially over 1,000 subscribers. So I want to thank every one of you that are subscribing. We really do appreciate it. We started last season with 2 subscribers, started this season with 200, and now already I think 2/3 of the way through the season, and we're at 1,000. It's just remarkable, and I want to thank you, Ian, for being a part of this and making this a reality. And I'm really grateful to be able to do this show for all of you guys. We love the sport of college football, and we love to show our passion for that to you guys. And so please continue to help us out. We appreciate all the love that you guys show us. And we're going to keep doing this until the wheels fall off. And this is just the beginning. So I'm looking for this thing to grow continually. And it's really a great thing to be a part of. But again, thank you all. Thank you, Ian. And we'll see you guys Wednesday.